Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will learn about a more advanced way of going live with a WordPress website. Now in this more advanced path, we are not going to use a plugin to do everything for us. Instead, we are going to learn how to do things manually by hand. Why would we do this? Well, one, it's a good opportunity to learn more about WordPress, and two, it will allow us to implement automatic Git deployment so that making future updates to the code files of our live website is a piece of cake. Okay, now the act of moving or copying a WordPress website manually really only involves two parts. Part one is the WordPress database that stores all of our posts and content and settings. And part two is all of our files. The WordPress system files, our theme, plugins, and any photos that we've uploaded through the WordPress media system. In this video, we are going to start with part one, moving the WordPress database, and then in our next video, we will cover moving our files. And that's when we will learn how to set up automatic Git deployments. Okay, but first, before we learn how to copy and move our database, I'm going to begin by completely deleting my live website that I set up with the simple path A. I'm going to completely delete it so that I can start over from scratch and move the site again with path B. If you followed along with path A, you will probably want to do the same, right? We basically want to hit a reset button and get a clean slate so we can learn how to move things the more advanced way. So in order to delete this live website's files and its database, we need to log into our web hosting account. So in a new tab, visit SiteGround or whatever web hosting company you're using. And let's go ahead and log in with our user account. Okay, and now we want to open our cPanel. So if you're using SiteGround, click on My Accounts, and then we see the Go to cPanel button. And actually, before I show you how to delete everything, I do want to stress the point that there's no sense in deleting a perfectly good website unless you want to practice the more advanced path B. And again, if you're not already familiar with the basics of the Git version control system, then path B doesn't make sense for you right now. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Not everyone needs to learn about path B. But if you feel like it's right for you, then let's go ahead and delete this website so we can start all over again. So in our cPanel, let's begin by deleting all of our files. So let's scroll down to the Files section, and then let's click on File Manager. Click Go. And we want to delete everything in this directory, within this public HTML directory. Now, every web hosting company does things in a slightly different way. So before you select everything in a folder and delete it, make sure that the folder that you're in contains folders like wp-admin, wp content, wp includes. Okay, if you see those folders, then you are in the correct location and you can delete everything. So I can just click on the first item or the first row and then hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and then click the very bottom row. Okay, so with everything selected, then we can click Delete up here. Okay, then confirm that delete. Okay, so if I go back to my website now, my brads.sgedu.site, and refresh, we see an error message because there are no files for the server to work with. Okay, we can go ahead and close this tab. And back in the main cPanel tab, now that we've deleted all of the files, the next step is to delete our database. So right below the Files section is a section named Databases. So let's go ahead and click on the first icon, the MySQL Databases. Down here we see Current Databases. I've just got the one, and over on the right-hand side there's a Delete button. So let's go ahead and click that. It asks, are you sure? I'm sure, so I click Delete Database. Cool. So at this point, I have a completely empty, clean slate. We've basically got a brand new, fresh web hosting account now. And now we can go ahead and learn how to move our local dev environment copy of WordPress up onto our web hosting account. Okay, and this time around, we're going to do it in a more advanced, hands-on manual way. Remember, there are two main parts to this. Number one, the database, and number two, all of our files. And in this video, we are going to begin with the database, right? Because within our local dev environment copy of WordPress, so my fictional-university.dev local website, this website's database contains all of the posts and pages and settings and all of our data. So instead of having to manually recreate each post and professor and campus, we just want to copy that database onto our web hosting account. So the question becomes, how can we create a copy of the database that's powering this local website? Now, if you have prior experience with PHP and databases, but maybe not WordPress specifically, your first instinct might be to look for something called phpMyAdmin, or open up a MySQL client like SQL Pro for Mac or Heidi SQL for Windows. However, even though those tools are great, when it comes to WordPress specifically, not only do we need to create a copy of this database, but we also need to perform a basic find and replace on the database. We need to find any and all instances of this domain, fictional-university.dev, or in your case, if you're using MAMP or XAMPP or WAMP, it might be localhost:888 or something similar to that. We need to find all instances of that in the database and replace that with the live website domain. So in my case, I want to find fictional-university.dev and replace it with brads.sgedu.site. Now again, you could use one of those tools I mentioned just a moment ago, phpMyAdmin or SQL Pro or Heidi SQL, but you're still going to have to open that exported database file in a text editor and manually perform a find and replace. Now that works okay, and I've done that in the past, but if your database is fairly large and your computer is not super powerful, that can really bog down your text editor. So instead, let me show you my preferred way of creating a copy of my local database and how to perform the find and replace all in one simple step. Okay, so from your local dev environment copy of Fictional University, log in as the administrator, and then in the admin dashboard, I want to install a new plugin. Don't worry, this is not some all-in-one plugin that's going to do everything for us. This is a very focused plugin that just performs a very specific task for us. So from the sidebar, hover over Plugins and click Add New. And in the top right search field, let's search for WP Migrate DB. This is the one I'm interested in. It has the exact name of WP Migrate DB. It's created by Delicious Brains. And as of this moment, it has over 200,000 installs. So let's go ahead and install it. And then click Activate. Okay, and with that new plugin activated, now if we hover over the Tools item in our sidebar, we have this new option named Migrate DB. Let's click on that. Okay, let's be sure to leave this first option selected. We do not want to run a find and replace on this actual database, right? Instead, we want to export or create a copy of this database, and we can perform a find and replace on that copy of the database. So for this first field, we want to find any instances of //fictionaluniversity.dev or whatever your local host domain is. And we want to replace that with // and then in my case, it's brads.sgedu.site. So I can just copy that, paste it in. For you, it will be different, right? It will be yourname.sgedu.site, or if you're using a different web host or you've purchased a real domain, obviously that will go here. Just be sure to not include the HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, we just want // and then your actual domain. Okay, so cool. This first row will ensure that the database works within its new live environment. We actually do not need this second row. Ideally, you could perform a find and replace for the absolute file path, but this is not necessary. Only certain plugins make use of this field, and it's not an absolutely essential part of WordPress. So I'm actually just going to click the X here to remove that row. Okay, so we're just performing this one global find and replace. And let's go ahead and click Export. Cool, you can see that that automatically downloaded a file for me. So you can either click this X to close this, or I think you can just click anywhere in the background of the page. Yep. And now if you check out the downloads folder on your computer, perfect. We've got a brand new file that is a copy of our MySQL database. This contains all of our posts and professors and campuses, all of our WordPress data and settings. So now back on our web hosting account, we just want to create a new database and then import this file. So back in my web browser, I have the cPanel tab still open. I'm still on the database page, but if you can't remember how to get here, let me navigate back to the cPanel home. Okay, and from the cPanel homepage, just scroll down a bit until you find the databases section. Click on MySQL Databases. And we can use this section here to create a brand new database. The name doesn't really matter. You can choose whatever you want. I will name mine University Data. And then click Create Database. Cool, it successfully created that. We can go back. Okay, so now we have this empty shell of a database. So it exists, but it's completely empty. So now we just want to modify it by importing that file that we just exported from our local WordPress. So to do that, let's jump back to our cPanel home. And from our cPanel, the tool that we can use to modify a database is named phpMyAdmin. So you can see it's located under the Databases section. So let's click on phpMyAdmin. Okay, in the left-hand column, let's begin by clicking on the database that we are interested in. So I will click on this first item. Okay, now at the moment, this database is completely empty. So what we want to do is import. Up here, there's an import button. Let's click on that. Okay, and then right here, we can choose a file to import. So click on that. And then select the new file in our downloads folder that we just created a moment ago, right? This is our copy of the database. Let's choose that. Okay, then down at the very bottom of the page, we can click the Go button. Cool, so the import was successful. And if you've ever been curious about how WordPress stores all of your data, well, this left-hand column gives you a good idea. So the database is made up of individual tables with certain responsibilities. So there's a table named WP Posts, which contains all of our posts. If you click on it, then you can see all of your data, right? And it almost looks like a giant spreadsheet. Each row is a post or a revision of a post. And you can see they have different columns like ID, the date, even post content. So this is the main body field where the actual content for a post lives. And back in the left-hand sidebar, there's also a table for users. So all of the user accounts. There's a table just for options. There's a table just for comments. You get the idea. Anyways, at this point, we have successfully copied the database from our local dev environment and pushed it up onto our web hosting account. And remember, there's only two aspects of moving a site. Number one is copying or moving the database, and number two is the act of copying or moving all of your files, right? So all of the WordPress system files, all of our theme files, any plugins that we've downloaded, any photographs that we've uploaded to the WordPress media system. Okay, and in our very next lesson, not only will we learn how to move all of those files, but we are going to do it in a nice, luxurious, automated way that leverages the Git version control system. This is going to be a lot of fun to set up, so let's keep things rolling, and I will see you then.